Hello, I'm Richard Hooper and this is SatTV. Now I'm pleased to be joined by Louis Dubin, Senior Vice President Product Management at Comtech Satellite Network Technologies. Lou, it's a pleasure to talk to you again. Now, there have been some changes at Comtech in recent weeks, particularly with the name change. What was the thinking behind this?
Thank you, Richard. Good to be here again, and good to talk to you. We have changed a couple of our divisions' names. We have brought together Comtech EF Data and Comtech Zycom. It's called Comtech Satellite Network Technologies, Inc. And we have brought together UHP and our Memotech group in Canada, and that's called Comtech Satellite Network Technologies Corp. And really, we're rebranding ourselves as just Comtech. We're going to get rid of a lot of the funny little bits, and we're going to be going as Comtech. And you'll see on our logos at trade shows, all of our documentation now, all of our quotes and purchase orders all say simply Comtech. Trying to make the world a little bit easier.
You talk about making the world a little bit easier. It's difficult to have a conversation without mentioning the pandemic and how it has affected product delivery. Have you encountered any supply chain issues?
We have seen a lot of our components and parts and cables go into initially 5-week lead time, things that were typically 1 or 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks. We even have some parts that are on over a year allocation. So what we did about 8 or 9 months ago was, instead of planning for the next quarter's worth of material, we're actually planning most of our products over a year out now. So it's definitely given us some challenges. We're trying to stay ahead of that. We're trying to plan ahead of that. And I don't see this going away anytime soon. So we're going to be planning much further out for quite some time.
You're a company that's known for innovation, and I understand you've brought out a new platform called Comtech Elevate. What does it do and what does it deliver to the customer?
Yeah, the Comtech Elevate is a new platform that we are introducing. It really is the best of the UHP historical platform and the Heights historical platform. So we've got a small device, just this big, that is a VSAT remote that will go anywhere from 2 kilobits per second up to 200 megabits per second. This little device can process over 200,000 packets per second, and it's allowing our customers to run TDMA when TDMA makes sense. We can run HDNA, which is a very fast switching SEPC-like efficiency type of waveform. It can actually do SEPC as well, and it can run at again over 200,000 packets per second, 200 megabits per second, and it can jump these waveforms whenever it's appropriate. So it's completely dynamic. The product will itself jump between these modes of operation when it makes sense. So if you have a highly oversubscribed network, that network probably will be running in a TDMA type of fashion. That same remote, that same site that could be running in TDMA for the first 6 months of its life, if it gets more and more traffic, it can switch to an HDNA type of waveform. If it has larger traffic yet, it can switch to an SEPC waveform. And all this happens automatically without the user having to do anything. Another thing we've introduced with this platform is another product called the CDM 780, which is a high-speed trunking modem, but it can be used on this platform itself, and it supplies a 500 megasymbol carrier supporting up to 2.5 gigabits per second of outbound traffic. So we now have a hub that can scale to hundreds of thousands of sites, supports 2.5 gigabit of outbound traffic, which could support thousands of remotes. And that CDM 780 is being brought into the Comtech Elevate platform as a large carrier for the out route. The thing about Elevate is that we're allowing our customers who have purchased some of our remotes in the past, such as the Pico or the UHP 100 and 200 series, that will all work on the Elevate platform. So they have sites they won't have to go revisit. They can migrate to the Elevate platform. They can take advantage of all the great things that Elevate brings to the table with the dynamic return waveforms, and they don't have to swap out their hardware.
Well, it sounds like an exciting project, but As we know, the industry is constantly evolving, particularly with LEO. What trends are you seeing and how you're responding as a company?
So we're involved in quite a few of the LEO programs. We have a lot of our RF equipment that's being delivered to some of the LEO providers. We do see that the LEO platforms are bringing a level of requiring a level of technology that really the industry hasn't had to deal with historically. These are very complex systems, and each one is different. So you have to have different solutions for these different LEO providers. So we're doing what we can to stay ahead of the curve by introducing platforms like Elevate that can scale on these LEO type of constellations. They can scale to the MEO and GEO constellations. And the complexity that's involved typically revolves around dealing with some sort of manager of managers, making sure that packets are getting to the right gateways, the right earth stations, the right VSATs, making sure that the timing of the waveforms and the timing of the packets are landing on these LEOs and MEOs and GEOs when it's appropriate. Some of these constellations are only lighting up certain parts of the ground segment at certain times. So the ground equipment has to be in the same time domain as these satellites so that the signal lands at the appropriate time and is either processed or simply bounced back to the Earth at the right time. Everything has to be in synchronization. The manager of managers has to convey all this information, and the ground equipment has to react accordingly. And so what we've done is we've started virtualizing a lot of the hub equipment that we sell for the Elevate platform. So a lot of the components will run on off-the-shelf servers with off-the-shelf hardware acceleration. These are common things that are in any data center, you name the data center providers. And we've also added a lot of northbound API capability. So we need to be able to have a manager of manager communicate with our system and our system communicate with it. And then to do that, you have to have a lot of APIs and interfaces that are very flexible that allow that system to behave properly.
Comtech is present in a number of verticals, but which is proving the most resilient at the moment?
At the moment, it's probably our defense sector. So our defense sector has stayed strong, not only in the US, but in foreign DODs. There's still a very strong appetite for satellite communications in those communities. There's a lot of RFIs and RFPs that are coming out, and we're participating and winning in many of these programs. I think the defense sector is probably one of the most stable sectors for us. We are also seeing a lot of movement in our MNO or mobile network operations, the cell providers. We still see a lot of traction and opportunities in that sector as well.
Moving forward, which is the biggest challenge you face as a company?
So I think trying to keep up with the innovation that's happening on the space segment is really the part that we're going to have to, and everyone's going to have to try to stay in touch with. Unfortunately, as we mentioned, the LEO and MEO and new GEO constellations, no one's developing these things in the same manner. So you really have to kind of pick a few partners because you can't develop for everybody. We're going to have to figure out which of these constellations make the most sense for our solution and work with those customers early on in making sure that our solutions are largely being developed the way we think can address a larger audience. There's a lot of systems out there that are, bespoke one-off type of systems that it's hard to develop for a system like that unless you have a long-term contract, you have a long-term partnership, and there's some back and forth as to how you can set that up and make it work for both parties.
Well, Lou, it's been very interesting talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's great to see you, Richard.